It was only just last week that we heard about the sudden and unfortunate news that Telltale Games had closed down. After a long history of blatant mismanagement, the once renowned studio sort of collapsed on itself on September 21st, 2018. Now, studio closures can happen for any number of reasons, but the way Telltale's upper management handled the whole ordeal and the way they screwed over the entire staff was pretty egregious. Workers were apparently informed of the studio's closure out of the blue on the day of. They were only given 30 minutes after the announcement to vacate the premises. They weren't given any severance to help make ends meet as they transitioned into new employment. They were kept working long hours into the night up until the last minute and received no compensation for it. Some employees were hired as little as a week prior to the studio shutdown, and others flew cross-country to work there. And the list of disastrous circumstances that are a direct result of upper management's negligence just goes on and on. Most former employees took to social media to provide details on what happened behind the scenes and to rally everyone together to help all those affected find new jobs. One disgruntled ex-employee decided that he would go as far as suing Telltale Games for violating labor laws, more specifically the WARN Act, which stipulates that employees must be advised of mass layoffs at least 60 days in advance unless the layoffs were a result of unforeseen circumstances. Not only could one make the case that Telltale's closure was hardly unforeseen, but even if it were, because the studio is based in California, which has its own version of the WARN Act that doesn't exempt unforeseen circumstances, the plaintiffs might actually have a pretty strong case to make here. The bottom line is this: Telltale Games gambled with over 250 lives by failing to inform them of the studio's strenuous financial circumstances and of the fact that the fate of the company was riding on investment deals that ultimately did not pan out. They essentially went all in with their poker chips and they lost, and the ones who paid the price were the 250 laid-off employees, whose lives were upended without warning. And as if they weren't already pissed enough at Telltale, the studio announced that they would be seeking other partners to help finish episodes 3 and 4, an announcement that games industry pundits didn't take kindly to, as they believe the studios should prioritize lending aid to the 250 lives they royally screwed over, rather than immediately seeking to replace them as if they were disposable. The overall impressions that Telltale's remnant gave off was that they were jumping ship onto a safety boat while leaving everyone behind to drown after having known for a while that the ship may be headed towards a collision course with an iceberg, which they failed to disclose to their crew until the ship had already hit the iceberg. So that's where we're at right now as far as the Telltale Games closure debacle goes. But just yesterday, on October 3rd, 2018, news outlet Kotaku uncovered more information after speaking to two sources familiar with the current behind-the-scenes goings-ons at Telltale who wished to remain anonymous. The sources went a bit more in-depth with what Telltale's remaining skeleton crew was planning as far as finishing Walking Dead final season was concerned. Apparently, it's not that Telltale wants to outsource Walking Dead final season for a quick buck, but rather they want prospective partners to hire former Telltale employees to finish what they started. It's apparently not a case of Telltale seeking additional funding, but rather the studio handing the Walking Dead keys off to a separate company who would then hopefully hire former staff on a contract basis to complete the remaining episodes. Now, this right here raises a number of questions, the most important of which is how the hell are they going to get any of the former staff back? It's not as if the laid-off Walking Dead team was ever informed of these plans. It's not as if members of Walking Dead's creative team were just waiting around twiddling their thumbs, waiting to get a call from Telltale about finishing the game through another company. All of the laid-off employees immediately began seeking new employment after their former employer's untimely demise, and most of them are probably well on their way to transitioning to stable employment by now. Getting the original Walking Dead team to return under the circumstances with so little advance notice just seems highly improbable and unrealistic, lacking foresight. Then again, the Walking Dead team may just be passionate enough about finishing what they started that they would be willing to dedicate their time towards the project, as long as they're properly compensated, of course. But at the same time, it would be perfectly understandable if they already settled into new jobs and cannot afford another dramatic shift in their lives. Nor should they be expected to make such a sacrifice, considering no plans were laid out to them before Telltale's abrupt implosion. Now, for Walking Dead fans who are really looking forward to experiencing the conclusion to Clementine's arc, there might be some hope yet. According to Kotaku sources, apparently, development on episode 3 of Walking Dead final season was nearly complete. Apparently, on the day the studio closed down, the third episode was scheduled for a ratings review, which normally only happens in the final stages of the game's development. More simply put, episode 3 was far along enough on the day of Telltale's closure that it would only take a few weeks worth of polishing and debugging to be ready for launch, and the planned release date was set to be November 16th, 2018. Development on episode 4, on the other hand, wasn't quite as advanced, though it was far along enough that the first round of voice work for the main characters were already recorded and a first review of a playable build was planned for the end of September. From there, the plan was to ensure that episode 4 would be finished and released on December 18th, 2018. So the only saving grace for the possibility of seeing Walking Dead final season all the way through is that episode 3 is pretty much done and episode 4's framework is already there. And according to Kotaku sources, ideally Telltale would want the full original team to return, but it was also noted that even just a few of the former staff returning might be enough to be able to finish the final 2 episodes. But we are still talking about a few weeks worth of work for episode 3 and a few months worth of work for episode 4. And I don't know if the former creative team can afford the luxury of setting that kind of time aside when their livelihoods were so recently and suddenly jeopardized. Let me remind you that everyone was let go without severance, their health insurance ran out not too long ago, and everyone's scrambling to find some stability again. They are focused on getting their life together and in order right now. They are in survival mode, and I can only assume many of them have already moved on to greener pastures. So an out-of-nowhere request to finish the project via proxy employment by another company may understandably be out of the question. However, if by some miracle Telltale and its potential partners and the original Walking Dead creative team manage to meet in the middle and work out some kind of solution or compromise where the Walking Dead final season can be completed by members of the original team while protecting their livelihoods and financial stability, that would certainly be ideal. But if that cannot happen, then the last people who should be blamed are the developers who are still confounded by all that's happened. The ones to blame in this case would be Telltale's upper management for being so utterly shit at their jobs. These are one man's thoughts and opinions anyway. I'd love to hear what your take is on Telltale's alleged plans for Walking Dead final season as conveyed by Kotaku's 2 sources in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content and would like to support this channel directly, consider donating on Patreon. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.